Are you looking to take your personal finances to the next level? Well, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Monday Money Tip Podcast, presented by I Was Broke, Now I'm Not, with your host, Joseph Sangle.
Well, welcome to the Monday Money Tip Podcast. My name is Joseph Sangle, and I'm joined, as always, with my co-host, Megan Hibbard. How are you doing today?
Doing great. Happy Monday, everybody.
Yes. And what episode number are we at of the podcast?
We are at 96.
Number 96.
Yeah.
That is awesome. And listen, this is a very special episode.
It is. We have a guest.
Yes, we have a guest. We've never had a guest before, I don't think.
Have
we had a guest? It's been a long time. And so our guest is Sarah Piercy. And the reason I have asked Sarah, and I'm so grateful for her joining this podcast, is we did an episode not too long ago talking about this idea and concept of a spending fast.
Yes.
And she is the person who kind of motivated that and introduced me to that topic. And so I'm going to introduce her and then bring her into the conversation. Sarah spent almost a decade in ministry as the executive assistant to the lead pastor of a growing church in Ontario, Canada, before welcoming her first son. She digs into her faith, her relationships, and herself to grow, and she's known for challenging herself with life experiments to make personal progress. Sarah continues to work part-time as an executive assistant, and on any given day, you'll find her wearing many hats: wife, mother, professional, personal chef, housekeeper. And when she carves out that golden margin, she loves to write about her exploration of what makes life rich, meaningful, and worth living. She lives with her husband and two boys, with another sweet baby well on the way, just north of Toronto. And so we're super excited to welcome Sarah Piercy to the podcast. Yay. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, it's awesome. And so we were just talking right before we went live. We're recording this at the end of April, and we have 71 degrees Fahrenheit, and you guys have snow. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, I'm looking out the window at snow.
I can't fathom that.
That's really amazing. As many of you know, our world global headquarters is in Anderson, South Carolina, in the upstate of South Carolina. And so we're just grateful for you joining us today. And I remember I got invited to speak at that very huge growing church there. And I met a young Sarah. And over the course of several visits, I think I came and taught something called the Financial Learning Experience. I think I taught it 5 times before Pastor Andy kind of took it on. And you had went on a spending fast all those many years ago. I think it was back in 2011 or 2012. I'm not sure the year. So what
It was 2011. 2011. Yeah.
So
yeah.
On coming out of the recession, so tell everybody, what is a spending fast? What is a spending fast?
A spending fast is deciding for a set amount of time that you are not going to purchase a set amount of items. So for me, that was a variety of things, but it can be anything for anybody. When you know your Achilles heel or your weak spot, you decide to fast that or cut it off for a set amount of time.
Oh, very good. I remember seeing this dieting manual that my mom always had around. She's always been a part of this diet club or something. It's really hilarious. It's really a social group, and it's lesser known than Weight Watchers. It's called TOPS, Taking Off Pounds Sensibly. And then when you get to your goal, it's called COPS, Keeping Off Pounds Sensibly. And she always had this little slogan at our house that says, if you're skinny, don't eat fast. And if you're fat, don't eat fast. And it was amazing how the punctuation, the same statement, works, right? And I was thinking about with the spending fast that says, if you're doing well with money, don't spend fast. But if you're not doing well with money, don't spend fast.
Yeah.
And so I felt like that kind of applies here. So you went on one in 2011. I mean, that's almost 10 years ago, a decade ago. And I just know how different I am when I compare myself to a decade ago. Tell us what you undertook with your spending fast. What were the items that you refrained from spending money on?
So at that point in my life, I was single. I was living on my own. And I decided I wasn't going to buy anything new. So to me, that meant anything I was going to go to the store and pick up and take away that was new. I still purchased food. I still ate. And I still would buy a coffee here or there because that wasn't a particular weakness of mine. I decided to buy everything that I needed secondhand, or I would borrow it. So for a full year, I decided anything that was new, I was not going to purchase. I was going to figure out how to use what I had, or find something that was secondhand, or, get creative.
Wow. And so, when I think of young single people that I coach, especially those who've kind of got their first job, they've got income, a first real job, I guess, and they spend a lot of money on food. They spend a lot of money at restaurants, a lot of money on entertainment, and a lot of money on clothes. Mm-hmm. And so you just nailed one of the big ones there. Like no new stuff. You're gonna buy secondhand stuff, borrow stuff. When you told your friends, hey, this is a thing for me, and I'm going to do this not for a week, not for a month, but for a year. Why did you choose a year? And what did your friends say when you said a year?
That's a great question. I chose a year because it felt really hard and it felt really long. And my motivations for the first spending fast that I did were different than the second time around, but I was convicted by how greedy I was, and the greed that I saw in myself. So I just thought, I want to cut that off. I want to smother it, or whatever it's going to take. And I thought maybe a year would do that. Many friends were very supportive and encouraging. Some people were like, well, that's not good for the economy. And I said, well, I'm not spending any less. I'm just redirecting it to other people instead of myself. So that was an easy conversation. And then some people pushed back a little bit and said, do you really need to do that? But generally, people were fairly supportive, and just kind of amazed that I was doing something that seemed so crazy at the time.
I remember the first time, I don't even know how I learned about it. I don't know if you told me about it or if it was a post you had done about it.
I don't remember either.
Tell us about your website. You write about some of this stuff still to this day.
I do. Yeah. My husband and I write a little bit at unitedanduntied.com. And I share a little bit of our story of the spending fast the first time around, and then the second time around as well. And the second time I did the spending fast, I did as a married woman that owned a house and 2 children. So it was very different.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
so
it was
unitedanduntied.com.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. And so as you explained it to your friends and you went through this, so I can imagine, I know how it is when I embark on something it's new, I'm excited about it. It's a decision I've made. I do really good for week 1, maybe week 2, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Like, tell us how long it took you to say, man, I am over this. This is a terrible decision. Why did I tell anybody? I'm being held accountable to this now.
The first 3 months were extremely hard. It probably took 3 months before I was like, okay, I'm adjusting. But a month in, I was like, oh, this is hard. 2 months in, I was not liking the decision that I had made, but I was committed to sticking it out for a year because I wanted to see how I was going to be different at the end. But the first 3 months were extremely hard.
So what were some of the lessons you learned?
Many. I learned that spending habits were a heart lifestyle. And in the same way that, exercise is a physical health lifestyle, healthy spending is as much of a lifestyle for your heart. And that was something I didn't want to lose. I wanted to continue healthy spending, however that looked. I valued gift so much more. When someone gave me something, I appreciated it tenfold because I couldn't buy it myself. There were so many things that I learned about myself, and the greed that I was trying to address and turn away from. It's still there, and it was still there in ways when I started buying new things again. And it's just something that I learned that I need to continually surrender. It's not something you get cured from, but it's something that I just need to continually keep my hands open about. And the day that I could buy something new again, that day 366, that day came and went like any other day, and I didn't go buy something new because I didn't need anything. So it changed my definition of what I needed. It helped me focus on the people I was with a lot more than, what was around for me to buy. There were so many lessons that I learned out of not allowing myself to buy.
I have so many questions, but I'm going to defer to Megan to ask the next question. But this is fascinating.
Okay, so when we reached out, you told us that you had embarked on another spending fast, and you kind of mentioned it a little bit, that this time you were married. So obviously it was a little bit different. And did you have one or two kids at the time? You had both?
Two, yes.
So
yes.
You said it was a little bit different, but like what was similar? What was different? How did this impact your family? Like, what did your kids say? Was your husband kind of like on board? Did you know about it before, like the one you did before? There's so many things to unpack there, but
yeah.
How is that different? How, like, if somebody is in your shoes and they have, hey, I'm married, I have kids, how can they do this with kids?
The decision affects more than just you.
Right. So it's
right.
a family decision. So what does that mean? Kind of talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's a great question, because it is very different when you are embarking on that, but you've got a family to support. What does that look like? My motivation for doing a spending fast the second time was very different. We were going through a particularly hard time with some health things in our family, and I was finding myself turning to buying things to make life easier and trying to find comfort in things that I was buying, and trying to find security in things that I was buying. And I was suddenly like, whoa, stop. This is not where I want to find my comfort and security. I want to be turning to Jesus for those things. Why is my default turning to things for those things? And I just didn't like the spending patterns I was seeing in my life. So I made the decision pretty quick, and I kind of told my husband instead of asking. Not that he put up a big fuss. He's like, sure, you don't want to spend money? That's fine. But he and I were friends through my first spending fast too. So he did see me go through that. And then with the kids, I decided I would buy new birthday gifts for the kids, and I would buy new birthday gifts for my husband or Christmas gifts. But that in general, I would also buy secondhand things for them. They were totally pleased to go to Value Village and pick out a new toy at Value Village and come home and wash it with the soap and bubbles. But I also have toddlers, so that's different. So I went through that year, and my husband was very supportive. And the kids are young enough that they didn't actually realize what I was doing. So it wasn't a conversation that I needed to have with them. But it was more of, am I providing for them well? Is this the kind of, family environment that we want to create? And I actually found, having gone through a spending fast once, that 3 months at the beginning was not nearly as difficult. I would actually say it was almost easy, because I knew what I was doing. I knew what the end result was going to be. I knew what the reward was at the end. And it was really a reset of my heart. It was a reset of my habits. And I just really wanted it. So it was a very different experience, but a positive one, I would say.
I think it's interesting. A couple of questions birthed out of that. One of them is 365 days encompasses everyone's birthday. It encompasses all the major holidays. It encompasses, like, whenever people go on diets, they try to do it when it's not one of the big holidays like Thanksgiving. It's not Christmas. Yeah. They try to put things in slots, but when it's a year, it gets them all. So did you find that it affected your experience for those holidays at all?
Oh, yeah. Well, I found a new love for gift giving, because it was the only time I could buy something new. So when I was going to a store looking for a gift for somebody, I just loved looking for something for them. And I found that the first time around too. It was just a new love for gift giving.
I think that's really interesting. So you've made a commitment yourself that you're not buying something new for yourself, but you're going to bless someone else with a gift that is new. And that is like the definition of dying to self. Like, that is like the ultimate. Most people want to buy themselves something new and then hand their old stuff off to someone else. And this is the inverse of that. And I find it fascinating. So there's a kind of an 8.5 year time period between the first and the second spending fast. How did you find lessons stick with you? Did any of these key lessons stick with you
They did.
over that time period?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. They did. I would say I started noticing everything I learned the first time. I started noticing or being reminded of those things the second time. Like the love for gift giving and the being more present with the people that I was with, instead of getting distracted by what I could buy or what I should buy. And it's a change of heart. It was like a habit reset and a heart reset. And I'll probably every decade, I'll probably do a spending fast, just because it's such a healthy reset. It feels, and yeah, generosity can be just as contagious. So when people see you giving and doing something, bizarre like that, it kind of inspires and challenges people to try it as well. And I just love that.
Yeah. So I feel like out of this episode, a lot of people might be challenged, like you're saying, to do this. Like, hey, I can do that. Like, that sounds like something that maybe they need to do or something that they want to challenge themselves to embark on. What would you what's an encouraging word you would say to them, or maybe like a tip as they go into this spending fast, whether it's for a year or a month or whatever they decide?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I will be so excited for each and every person who decides to do this, because it's life-changing in the best ways. The first thing I would say is the beginning is going to be hard. Push through it, because there is reward on the other side that you might not expect. And it's awesome. It's beautiful. And I think it's amazing. So I would encourage anybody who's considering it to do it. If you're worried about the economy, just don't save the money, spend it on other people.
Yeah.
I love it. I think this is interesting because you are a writer. Your natural inclination is to write things. And not everybody is a writer, but you were writing about your experience as you went along. How did you find that outlet to be helpful as far as accountability, but also trying to put into words what you were experiencing, this heart and habit, as you've described it?
Mm-hmm. Well, it made it feel very tangible because what I was hoping to change was something that was intangible, the condition of my heart. What do I do with the greed that I see in myself? So putting words on paper or typing them into a keyboard made it more tangible and more trackable. I could see the change that was happening in me. And I also shared it publicly for accountability. I wasn't trying to brag. I wanted people to be like, are you still doing that? And I never wanted to say, no, I decided to stop.
Yeah.
I think it really is, profoundly, you use the word bizarre. I find it, the word I would use is inspiring. That normal blends in, and it is the unusual and it's the risk takers. And I'm reminded of Steve Jobs' Apple ad where he says, here's to the risk takers, and you took a risk, put yourself out there. You've done it twice. You've done it as a single person. You've done it as, wife, professional, mother. I think you also just changed houses in the middle of all this stuff. I mean, it's while all the flurry and the busyness of life, you chose to embark on it again because it's soul care is really what it is. And I think that's incredibly inspiring. So let's talk about practical steps. If a person is listening and they're inspired to go on a spending fast, whether their spending fast is to give up their daily habit of coffee, or it's to give up, shopping, or it's to give up going out to eat, and instead using that time to read the Bible or read the books that they want to, or take that class. How would give us a couple of practical steps you would encourage them to take?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. I would encourage somebody to think about where their weak spots are in their spending. Where do they spend the most frivolous money or the most thoughtless money? Or where do they want to be more strategic and thoughtful about, and tailor the spending fast around those items? So for me, that was physical purchases. Both times it was physical purchases. Anything new. I have friends that did it because they ate out so much and they wanted to stop eating out so much. And so they just cut off the eating out budget. Make it a length of time that feels challenging and almost unattainable, because it is doable. And then set up the criteria. Okay, where are the exceptions? For example, when I did my spending fast the second time around, I thought, well, I'm going to buy craft supplies, but I will not buy anything new. I will go to Value Village or, whatever thrift store to get what we would need. But I was going to buy craft supplies because if I needed something, I wanted to be able to make it. I might do that differently the next time around, but for me, I just set up criteria of what I can and can't buy and a timeline, and then you stick to your guns and you stick to it. And it's totally doable. I wrote about, how I set up that criteria on our blog, and that post is still there. It's about a year old now, because
we'll get a link to it and put it in the show notes. No doubt about it. I heard you. I think so I heard set criteria, set a definite timeline, and establish accountability. Mm-hmm. I think those three things are absolutely must, all three of them. Yeah. So I heard you say, I've had friends that did this. Yeah. So I'm pretty sure that you inspired your friends to do this, that they saw what you're doing, so they chose to do something similar. So tell us about how that happened. What was the ripple effect of, this bizarre / inspiring spending fast, Sarah's spending fast?
It was a delayed ripple effect, but every time I heard somebody doing it and they would tell me that I had inspired them, it was so exciting to me because I knew there was something great in it for them. And I just didn't know what that was. And I think, the way God speaks to you when you fast is very personal. And it's different for each person. So when you embark on a spending fast, I don't know what God's going to say to you, but I'm really excited that he's going to teach you something about yourself, where you're spending, the condition of your heart. And it's just been a joy to watch other people go through that too, and then see what they learn on the other side of it, because it's different than what I learned. And it's a thrill to see.
So I think that's awesome. Let Megan ask a question.
Well, I'm just thinking through, I know a lot of us are in this hard season right now of COVID-19 and the coronavirus and all this stuff. And a lot of people's jobs are unsure and that kind of stuff. And I just think it could benefit so many people when you're on this spending fast. Maybe your job wasn't impacted, but somebody that was. So if you go on this spending fast, what a blessing it could be for other people that you could bless them. And not that you need the spending fast to do it, but if this is something that you're I'm struggling with this, what a great opportunity we have that we could step into that of, hey, I'm not going to spend money on this. Instead, I'm going to use that money to give towards other people, providing meals or gifts or treats or anything like that, practical things that people could do. I just feel like there's such an opportunity there. Yeah. People could, easily step into that.
I mean, really the idea of fasting is sacrificing. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's really what it is giving up something that I really, really want to do for something that I believe is greater. Yeah. And so as we wrap up in our last couple minutes, I've heard you talk about these spiritual implications and how you're excited about how they're going to grow spiritually. There's also practical benefits, I'm sure, financial practical benefits. So tell us a little bit about how did you redirect the dollars that you freed up that you were spending money on? How did it help you guys?
Yeah, that's actually a really important question. I should have added that to my answer of what would I tell people to do. Decide how you're going to redirect that money. So the first time around, I was actually redirecting it all outward. I wanted to send flowers to friends more often. I wanted to give more generously. I wanted to give more generous birthday gifts, that kind of thing. So that was my goal the first time around. The second time around was to reset my spending habits. I was seeing my spending habits, fluctuate like a roller coaster based on how I was feeling in the struggle that we were going through. And I'm sure many people can relate right now with the crisis that we're in. you can feel different about the day every day right now. And online marketing is in your face every day. If you're online, you're getting so many ads about this is going to make your life better. If you buy this, this will feel better. Or it might feel like life is going back to normal if you can get this product online. And I think when we are thinking through how to redirect our money, it's what is your goal? Do you need to save more money? Do you need to accomplish a financial goal for your kids? Do you want to give more generously? Megan, like you were saying, is there somebody that you actually want to help? If you don't buy that thing online, what can you do with that money? So the second time around for me was actually to reset some spending habits and put money in savings, but also continue to be generous because I felt like my spending the second time was like a runaway train that I wanted to get back.
Kids will do that.
They will.
Yeah.
Grow so rapidly.
Yeah. So redirecting that money and being intentional and thoughtful about how you're spending it is a huge part of the spending fast. And I would actually say that the financial benefits personally came after the fast because my spending habits were reset. I was paying more attention. I was being more thoughtful. I didn't buy things on a whim and waste money the way that I had prior.
Yeah.
And those benefits actually came after the fast was over.
Yeah. I would venture a guess that you had trained your eyes to see a deal. What is the place you shop up there? The Value Barn? What is it called?
It's called Value Village. Maybe you
Value Village. There we go. The Value Village. I'm pretty sure you could spot it the instant you came in. Your eyes, your nose, all your senses were alert for the value. And that certainly, what do they say? Form good habits. They're just as difficult to break as bad ones. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's really a powerful thing. Megan, do you have any last questions you'd like to ask?
I think we nailed them all, but I really appreciate you joining us. I feel like this is super helpful. I feel like we told your story before, but to hear it from you, I feel like is a totally different side of the story and brings so much more light and encouragement and challenge and inspiring other people. So I'm super grateful that this worked out where you could be here and join us and tell your story.
Yeah, it's incredible. And so again, Sarah, share how they can find you, unitedanduntied.com. Yeah. And is there any other way that they could connect with you or that you would point resources you would point them to? Unitedanduntied.com is definitely the best. It's definitely the best spot. I am on Instagram at Sarah V. Piercy, and on Facebook at the same name. But yeah, I try to write, when I said the golden margin, when I find golden margin, I love to write and share about, what I'm learning and how I'm experimenting on myself to grow. I like to do extreme experiments on myself that challenge me. That's awesome. Well, thank you again for joining us for the Monday Money Tip podcast. It's going to be an inspiration to many. We're so grateful.
Thank you. Thanks for what you guys are doing.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Monday Money Tip Podcast, presented by I Was Broke, Now I'm Not. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a review and subscribe. And for more great content and to stay up to date, visit iwbnin.com. We'll catch you next time.